Welcome back to another video, guys. Today we're looking at Final Fantasy VII Rebirth on both the RTX 4090 and RX 7900 XTX with a Ryzen 9800X 3D CPU at 4K. Now, while most of you who watch my comparisons get it, I do get a few comments every now and then criticizing my decision to compare these two GPUs since they don't cost the same or are direct competitors. Apparently there's rules what you are and aren't allowed to compare. Well, the answer in this case is actually very simple. It's curiosity. And instead of making two videos, one for each GPU, it's more interesting to look at both, no? I mean, this isn't like buying advice or an in-depth review of GPUs or anything like that, really. It's just an enthusiast who bought some hardware and likes to put them to the test. And you guys apparently like to watch it, and I'm grateful. So anyway, let's go ahead and do that and start with the settings. In good old Square Enix fashion, it's a nightmare to navigate this menu with a mouse and keyboard, so I do suggest using a controller. But the graphical menu, it's not really all that different from the previous game. There's still 120 FPS cap. We do have an option of VRR or VSync if you want to. And then we have a dynamic resolution scaling, which is what you use to adjust your upscaling as well. Speaking of which, they've given us DLSS, but no FSR or frame generation. So that's weird. But we're going to be using TAA for this video because we're also going to look at the 7900 XTX and 4090. So we're going to use the same exact settings, which is everything maxed out, native 4K, 100% resolution scale. And as you can see, the 4090 here hits around 100 FPS, and we are now GPU bound. This is the limit of the 4090 in this game. Now, it will hit 120 FPS most of the time, but sometimes it does drop a little bit below that. Well, let's see how the 7900 XTX stacks up against the 4090. Out of curiosity, of course.
But our reactor's the first of its kind. It really put Mount Nebel on the map.
I've seen a few reactors in my time, but none with such a breathtaking view.
We have the 4090 on the left and 7900 XTX on the right. It looks like the 4090 is being limited by the 120 FPS cap, whereas the 7900 XTX is being limited by the 7900 XTX. So while it is around 30 or so FPS below the 4090, it's still doing actually really good. We have some very nice smooth frame times, which is great because the first game, Final Fantasy VII Remake, actually had some issues with stutters, and this one is much better, although it does have some issues as well, don't get me wrong. A standout issue that I noticed actually seems to be more with Radeon. If you look at our frame time, we got some pretty decent stutters. And now that's not to say that it doesn't happen on Nvidia, but it does happen on the Radeon GPU a little bit more if you look at the frame time. And I even went online trying to find a little bit more information about this, and there seem to be people complaining about the same thing. Now, it's not like crazy pervasive, but it can be a bit distracting. As you can see here, we're getting more frame rate stutters, and they're the big ones too. If you look at the frame time graph, you can see it. Those are quite noticeable. If it was like tiny little blips, you don't even notice those at all. But yeah, I'm not sure why this is happening. The game does actually use direct storage, so I'm not sure if that plays a role or if AMD might have to release a driver update. It is quite possible because clearly, I mean, I've tested Radeon GPUs for years, especially against Nvidia. The RX 7900 XTX especially actually does a really good job with having a smooth frame time. And it does most of the time. But sometimes there seem to be a few more big stutters on Radeon, as of right now anyway. But it is something that happens more during cutscenes, as you saw there. So I don't know if it's like a loading thing or whatever it is, but I'd suspect that they're probably going to fix it with an update. Other than that, though, the game looks absolutely gorgeous at native 4K. It looks phenomenal, especially when the only reference I had was the way it looked on PlayStation 5, which wasn't that good in its performance mode. So yeah, this is definitely the definitive version of the game, or the way to play this game. And I very recently finished Final Fantasy VII Remake, by the way, for the very first time. Never played the original. I have it. I will probably play it someday, but it was my first time, and I played through it to get ready for this release. And I played like 90% of it on the Steam Deck, and it ran beautifully on the Steam Deck, beautiful HDR. And this game actually also has very beautiful HDR on PC. So yeah, overall, it's a really, really nice package. Now, I was going to try DLSS and a bit of upscaling or resolution scaling, but with these GPUs, it's kind of pointless because we have 120 FPS cap, and we've maxed out all the settings, and both of these GPUs are well above 60 FPS. It's really kind of pointless. Although, I have heard that there is a mod that uncaps the FPS and even adds frame generation, possibly even FSR, so we might have to look at that in the future. But let's go ahead and take a look at an indoors area, and then we'll wrap it up, because the outdoor areas are not as demanding as the indoor areas, apparently. That's a little bit different. Now, this chunk of the game here should actually be pretty interesting, because we are going to be GPU bound on the RTX 4090 instead of it being limited by the 120 FPS. So that should give us a little bit more of an accurate idea as to the difference in performance between the two. And if we look, the XTX is at, I don't know, like 80 FPS. While the 4090 is at 100. So it looks like the 4090 is about, I don't know, 25, maybe 30, between 20 and 30% faster at 4K with the same settings. So yeah, that's actually about what you would expect. And I don't know, sometimes people get upset but the 7900X, but that doesn't make the 7900XTX look bad at all, actually. When you consider the price, I think it's doing actually extremely well. And obviously, if you're buying any GPU, right, you have a price set and you're looking for a certain amount of performance or a certain amount of features. In this particular game, I would say the XTX does obviously extremely well. You know, other than the more frequent stutters, which I'm assuming are more game related, or perhaps should be fixed with a driver. But yeah, they're definitely more prevalent on Radeon GPUs for sure, because I actually saw, oh no, it's Alex did a review of the game and he was complaining about the stutters, but he does use a 7900 XT. So he was probably getting more of them. Now, it's not to say that the 4090 again does get them, as you can see here. The 1% lows are not great, but they're not bad, right? Obviously, you don't want a big gap between your averages and 1% lows, but I still say it's still much better than the previous game was. And with a couple updates, it should get better. But yeah, this is kind of strange, guys. It's definitely more demanding indoors than it is outdoors in this game. So that's a little bit strange. We dropped all the way down to the mid-60s on the 7900 XTX here. Maybe it's all the alpha effects and all the spell effects that make the game more demanding. I'm not really sure, but to me it actually felt pretty good to play on both GPUs, if I'm being honest. But anyway, guys, I guess to wrap up the video and share my thoughts, because I have some thoughts. I'm not happy that there is no FSR in the game. I mean, this is Unreal Engine 4, and FSR should just be a plugin. So I find it kind of strange that they have DLSS, TAA, TAAU, but no FSR and no frame generation. And there's still a 120 FPS cap. And I didn't even test ultra-wide support, but I'm willing to bet that there is no such thing, because there isn't ultra-wide support on the Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I am an ultra-wide player, actually. I was using Flawless Widescreen mod to get the Final Fantasy VII Remake to run in ultra-wide 21:9, and to unlock the FPS. So it's not really an engine limit, because the game will run at above 120 FPS, but for whatever reason, they have it capped 120 FPS again. So I'm not sure. I would say that it is a better PC port than Final Fantasy VII Remake was. So I guess that's a step forward. but I think it's a pretty slow step for Square Enix. I think they're taking multi-platform a bit more seriously, and they should. There's no reason why I had to wait to play this game on my PC. Yes, I have a PlayStation 5, but I would rather play it on PC. So please, Square Enix, put your games on PC day one. And put them on Xbox too. You want to make money or not? But anyway, other than that, I mean, the game looks absolutely fantastic. I can't really speak on the upscaling because I didn't really test it. Maybe I will with my other GPUs, and maybe I'll try that mod too. So there is a mod that uncaps the FPS and adds frame generation and possibly FSR as well. So I think that probably deserves a separate video along with a guide to show how to do it, because it's ridiculous, right? It's PC gaming in 2025. We should get DLSS, FSR, and frame generation by default on every game, especially on Unreal Engine, right? So anyway, I don't want this to devolve into a rant. I am excited to play the game, obviously. I like the previous one. But what about you guys? Are you excited? What do you think? Did you buy the game? Are you having fun with it? Are you experiencing issues? Let me know down below. I do appreciate you guys watching. Please like the video if you did like it, and consider subscribing for more content. Either way, I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.
Take it from here.